On your power station Radio Gold 90.5 FM, you are welcome to today's edition of the mother of all talk shows, Alhaji and Alhaji. And this morning there's lots on our table to discuss. I hope your week has been good. Well, mine was good, so I believe was that of our panelists, and we will do justice to the issues this morning. There's so much that has been happening throughout the entire week. And talking about the entire week, I'm referencing Monday through to Friday. His Excellency the President started a 3-day tour of the Volta region. Many issues have cropped up as a result of the President's tour of the Volta region. Issues about the Eastern Corridor Road, the fact that those roads are not good enough, and the assurances from the President that by 2020, that road would have been fixed. Issues about the election 2020, the fact that the minority in parliament have a suspicion that there is every effort being put in place to disenfranchise people within the Volta region. The President sought to allay the fears of Voltarians when he visited them within those 3 days. Many other concerns were raised, one which has to do with the non-acknowledgement of the commissioning of projects which had previously either been commissioned by the John Dramani Mahama administration or started by the John Dramani Mahama administration. And all of these issues came up. There was also the issue about the ban on the issuance of birth certificates, and per the minorities' position, the transfer of top 3 individuals at the birth and deaths office in the Volta region, and the fact that a letter which they had cited dated somewhere in June ordering the seizure of all registrations when it comes to births in the Volta region. They believe this is a grand scheme for the NPP to rig the 2020 elections. What did you make of all those concerns expressed by the minority and the President's assurances he gave Ghanaians when it came to the Volta region? That was not the issue that dominated the conversation throughout the entire week. There was also the matter of how the health sector is doing. Concerns about, healthcare to the citizenry, concerns about the lack of logistics at various hospitals, concerns about, non-functional equipment within the various hospitals that we have in the country. And the final straw that we got to hear, which had to do with the statement from the Kolebu Teaching Hospital to the effect that they were no longer receiving referrals from other medical facilities. The questions many have been asking is that, look, if the Kolebu Teaching Hospital is not receiving referrals from other hospitals, if those hospitals had the capacity to deal with those, situations, medical conditions, why would they refer it to Kolebu in the first place? The response that has come from the Health Ministry's PRO, who suggests that, if it's headache and if it's stomach and all of those things, they are not emergencies, so don't be taking it to, the Kolebu Teaching Hospital, suggesting that all of these have come about as a result of uncontrolled birth by Ghanaians. How did you take that? Many other issues as well. The non-functional CT scan at the Kolebu Teaching Hospital also took center stage, with we the folks here on the morning show of Radio Go deciding to picket at the Kolebu Teaching Hospital to ensure that that non-functional CT scan becomes functional in the next few days. A petition was submitted and the assurance was given that as of the time we got there, the machine was already being repaired, and that in a few days we should have the machine back working, and that the ministry is even preparing to acquire a new CT scan to help doctors in their line of work. These and many issues dominated the media space throughout the entire week. But this morning, we will limit ourselves to just a few and discuss them right here on your power station, Radio Gold 90.5 FM. My name is Samuel Ishen, and the pleasure is all mine to welcome you to today's edition of the show. It will run between now and 12 midday when we say bye-bye to each other. As always, I take you through the latest headlines of the newspapers. I nearly forgot, lawyer Francis Xavier Susu, also had his day in court, and that ban that had been placed on him by the GLC was lifted, and it was a day of joy for lawyer Francis Xavier Susu as well. Now, if you check the front page of the Daily Guide newspaper, you find a picture of the minority leader, picture of Madame Gloria Kufu, Emmanuel Amakofi Boa, and it says double salary saga, ex-ministers dragged to AG. On the front page of the paper, it looks like this story is popping up again. I won't jump on hearsay, Martin Amidu says so. That was after the board had been commissioned. Blows over Eastern University, $90 million loan. And Ghana to open consulate in Curacao. That's on the front page of the Daily Guide newspaper. You find on the front page of the Ghanaian Times newspaper, National House of Chiefs demands apology from Freddie Blay. Finance Minister to present mid-year budget review on the 19th of July, and swine fever outbreak hits Central Region. Also on the front page of the paper, big drug haul in Ghana, Nigeria. 22 drug dealers arrested, quantities of cocaine, cannabis, heroin, others, and $22,000 cash confiscated. All on the front page of the Ghanaian Times newspaper. You will find on the front page of the Daily Graphic newspaper, no bed syndrome. Kolebu deploys doctors. They will handle emergencies in hospitals. I will continue to fight for the oppressed. That's according to lawyer Susu. And Atukwe Okan, a legend, is dead. Wasi results out, and Sola Tuna Kalba dissect request transfer for policeman in alleged sex scandal, and over 500 pigs killed in Central Region following swine fever. That's all on the front page of the Daily Graphic newspaper. The Spectator has on its front page a picture of actress Gloria Safo and others paying tribute to McJordan Amati, and the strapping babies are the best. That's according to Dr. Mrs. Na Ashili Dodo. And I wanted to be a lawyer. That's also on the front page of the paper. Those are the headlines of the newspapers we have with us this morning on Alhaji and Alhaji, the mother of all talk shows. It's listened to across the world on our website, www.radiogold905.com. You can listen to us. If you go to the Google Play Store and search for Radio Gold 90.5, you can install the application on your phone and you can listen to us anywhere in the world. Also, on the TuneIn application, both Android and Apple devices, you can search for Radio Gold 90.5 and you can listen to us anywhere in the world as well. You can listen to us live as well, also on the website of PAP MC GH as well, and follow the conversation. We've got affiliates all over the country, and as we begin the conversation, we'll point you in the right direction as to which stations you can listen to us live on if you find yourself in the Volta region, in the Central region, or any other region you may find yourself. This show is very, very interactive. That's to say that your thoughts, your views, and your comments are very much an integral part of the show, and you can send them to us live on Twitter, Facebook, and the handle you should be looking for is Samuel Ishen GH. Samuel Ishen GH. The Ishen is spelled ESHUN. For those of you who may be sending me messages on Facebook, please make sure you add me on Facebook before you start sending the comments, because I may not be able to see them if you don't add me. The Ishen is ESHUN and it's all spelled together, Samuel Ishen GH. Send your comments through and I'll read them. The entire show is proudly brought to us by TT Brothers. They are the sole distributors for the Tango fruit juice. They've got the orange, they've got the apple, they've got the other different flavors as well that you can purchase for your parties, for your weddings, for your funerals, and it's not too expensive and it's of high quality as well. They also distribute the Ankoti premium malt as well. We'll talk about them and where you can find them as we go along this morning on the show. So we are tabling for discussion this morning developments in the health sector and challenges in the wake of the no bed syndrome, the non-functioning CT scan, and Kolebu refusing referrals and matters arising within our health sector. That's our first issue for this morning. We would also discuss the president's tour of the Volta region, where he said that he has no interest in disenfranchising Voltarians, and His Excellency the President told the people in the voter region. But the minority in parliament said the exclusion of the voters' ID card as a base document for the registration of the Ghana card is a scheme to rig the 2020 elections. We will discuss the implications of that on our electoral system as we move along this morning. If we do have the time, we'll discuss the foreign minister of Venezuela warnings to the US of A that his country will resist any aggression from the US and related concerns. Those are the issues we are tabling for discussion this morning on Alhaji and Alhaji, the mother of all talk shows. As always, my guests are already here with me to help me discuss the issues, and I'm joined by Mr. Kwesi Pratt Jr. He is the managing editor of the Insight newspaper, Ambassador Sampiali, former Ghana High Commissioner to India. Comrade Murtala Ibrahim Mohammed is a former MP for Nanton. Bernard Mona is the national chairman of the PNC. They will help me do justice to the issues this morning on Alhaji and Alhaji, the mother of all talk shows. Once more, welcome to the show, and let me hear your comments. I'll start with you, Comrade. Good morning.
Good morning, and good morning to your cherished viewers, and of course, good morning to senior Comrade Kwesi Pratt, and good morning to my kid brother, Bernard Mona. Good morning to your good self. I think that the issues facing us are so enormous that they occupied the minds of almost everybody over the past week or two. It also occupied most of the discussions that we had on radio and on TV, the extent to which one would expect some action to have been taken, and unfortunately those actions are not being taken. Issues of health, we are being told now that we shouldn't do politics with it, and this narrative is coming from government and government appointees and associates and friends of this super incompetent government, that the narrative is now being changed. Some have even gone further to blame administrators of those health institutions for lack of some of these basic equipments and not government. And they blame heads of those institutions and administrators of those institutions just in an attempt to insulate government of the blame. Let me say that, Deshaun, this is a political issue. It will remain a political issue as it was a political issue when the NDC was in government, because it is the responsibility of those in political authority. The mandate of the governance of this country at any point in time would be given to a political party, and the political party would be headed by a person who is the president. The extent to which the administration of the entire nation, which include our health delivery systems, are in the hands of this political elite who are given the mandate by the people to govern, you cannot insulate the politics out of these issues. It is also important for us to understand that just as people felt that they needed to have taken advantage of the situations that we were in long before 2016, and in fact in 2016, they can't today try to insulate and absolve themselves of the blame that comes with the inability of government to provide some of these basic equipment. I agree that people who are tasked with the responsibility to ensure that some of these things are provided and maintained must first and foremost be the administrators of the various health institutions. But if they are not able to do what they are supposed to do, we need to begin asking ourselves questions whether their inability has been brought to the attention of government, particularly the Ministry of Health, who is the representative of government in ensuring that we have effective and efficient health delivery. Now, if we come to a positive response to this question, then one can absolutely blame government for some of the challenges that we face. Now, you remember when we lost the 70-year-old man, who indeed the family, per the accounts given by the family, they took the man to about 7 different, hospitals. Some of the hospitals were private, others public hospitals, and they couldn't admit them because the response they got was that they didn't have enough beds. Some of us asked about is it the hypocritic oath that medical officers, particularly doctors, are supposed to swear and honor, which says that at any point in time, I'm just paraphrasing, that if anybody is in need of health assistance, you ought to give it without giving excuses. So the argument of non-availability of beds was completely ramshackled. People indeed indicated that it ought not have been an excuse that you deny someone admission in such a precarious situation, that they ought to have been attended to, even if they could stabilize the state of the man and then refer the person to another hospital where they could find the beds. I'm also not going to sit here and pretend to say that any government can absolutely solve the problems of our health needs at any point in time. But the extent to which some of the avoidable, mistakes that we experience day in, day out, one would have to blame the political elite and by extension blame the government for some of the precarious situations in which we find ourselves today. Now, there also another moral question that was raised at the time was whether indeed if those hospitals and health centers that were put up by President Mahama and the NDC, which for only reason known or to the consciences of His Excellency the President and his gang of appointees, that if they had commissioned and allowed those hospitals to be operational, would we have experienced some of these problems we experience? Some have argued that yes, we would have experienced them, but no one would deny the fact that at least even if we were to be experiencing them, we would have been experiencing them at a very minimal rate. Now, the argument that was also being made was that, look, assuming that the man who was taken to these hospitals, now he went there, they took him there and they didn't have beds because the beds were occupied. Perhaps the people who have occupied those beds would have made do with the Legon Hospital, with the Bank of Ghana hospitals, and other hospitals that are listed around the country, which were constructed and completed, and this government refused to operationalize those hospitals. You also ask yourself another point, that when we had this problem of the Legon Hospital, you had a Minister of Health who lied to the people of this country without any shame. He sat on TV and before the cameras and you journalists and said that the Legon Hospital was not operational because they didn't have a standby generator. I don't want to believe that the minister didn't know that there were about 3 standby generators at the hospital. But he was lying because clearly the minister had visited the facility on several occasions before that lie he told. Now, if he visited those facilities, and I know for sure that they took him round, and in taking him round, they certainly would have shown him the standby generator. It is not hidden somewhere. And our checks have revealed that he was actually shown the standby generator in some of the rounds that he took at the facility. Yet he stood and lied. Clearly, yet the civil society, the moral society, do not see anything wrong with some of these lies. And I think that for me, that makes it a responsibility of government in absolucy. In as much as I am not holding brief for the administrators of those health institutions, government has a mandate and a responsibility. The only body that takes the taxes of the people of this country is government. And therefore, even if you have people who are tasked with the responsibility to discharge responsibilities that ought to have been discharged by government and they are not doing it very well, you need to demonstrate the political will. Unfortunately, this government is uninterested in demonstrating such political will. Let me also commend Radio Gold for the initiative you took, the bold step to picket at the Kolebu Teaching Hospital to ensure that these things are done. And I guess that when you started announcing and informing the general public the action you were going to take at Kolebu, that would have occasioned the speedy reaction of the authorities at Kolebu to start, per the information they gave you, fixing the machines before you got there. Let's pray and hope that they haven't also lied like the Minister of Health lied on the issue of Legon, the hospital. Now, there's also the argument that is being made that yes, Kolebu is supposed to be a referral hospital. The other time I was with one of the incompetent appointees of this government, and he said the referral has been a challenge confronting us every day, and therefore we need to do something to stop referral. And I say referrals can't be stopped. Even in the most advanced countries, in Europe and America, everywhere in the world, there are hospitals that are meant for that. There are hospitals that are supposed to be referral, such that when patients are sent to other hospitals and they are not able to more or less, treat those people, or when patients are sent to some hospitals and their situation is getting worse, then they take them to those hospitals. And if you read the statement that was issued by Kolebu, they have had some red light, or is it red light, green light, and is it yellow or blue light?
There's yellow,
red and green, exactly. That where it means that cases that are referred there should be cases of red. And now, but the point is that how many hospitals are available? Even if you want to take the vicinity within even this area, which falls within the area of Kolebu, how many hospitals do we have? And even if we do have hospitals, I believe that most of them will be private hospitals. And the private hospitals can't the poor people afford to treat their people, some of whom are not even administering the health insurance. Now, so that is the challenge. And perhaps there is the need for some education to also be done to let people understand that it's not every case that you take to Kolebu. But the challenge here is that if you are not supposed to take every case to Kolebu, the other hospitals too are also choked. Now, this issue of no beds syndrome, it means that there are no even beds for people to attend to you. I'm not saying that Kolebu has enough beds. Kolebu too doesn't have enough beds. They also face the same challenge. It brings to fore the need for us to expand the infrastructure, and that is the vision President Mahama had when he felt that we needed to expand the health infrastructure across the country, and he did this. Now, if President Mahama had the vision to do this, to put up regional hospitals, put up, district hospitals, municipal hospitals, and cheap compounds across the country. The extent to which all of us appointees, including His Excellency President Mahama, sacrifice 10% of our salaries to be able to provide these cheap compounds for people who so dearly need them. We did all those things. The civil society and the clergy haven't even seen that. And they haven't even seen the need to commend the government and also entreat this government to take similar steps. They haven't even seen the need to do some of these things. Now, is it not extremely worrying that government has provided health facilities across the country? Regional hospitals, district hospitals, cheap compounds have been provided, polyclinics have been built, and this government decided that they are not going to commission them for reasons only known to their consciences. Yet nobody sees anything wrong with some of these things. Because if they had any tangible reason, I believe that they would have provided same in the matter of University of Ghana Medical Center. They would have done that. A hospital that had over 500, getting almost 1,000 beds. Can you imagine the number of people who would have taken advantage of those facilities? That would have eased the pressure that is on Kolebu today, and which is indeed posing a threat to the referral nature of Kolebu Teaching Hospital. So these issues are issues that sometimes it beats my imagination that for over a year getting to 2 years, this government doesn't see anything wrong with their inability and refusal deliberately to have these hospitals, operationalized. Go and look at the Rich Hospital. Now, it's so embarrassing and appallingly bizarre that they came and even the plaque that had the name of President Mahama embossed in it, they changed it. They changed it, claim credit to the hospital. Now, even if they wanted to do that at Legon Hospital, they could have done same. If they want to do that because they have no shame in engaging in such venture. What the people of this country needs is that they want to see those hospitals operationalized. That is what they want to see. Now, if you think that certain things didn't go right in the matter of those hospitals, if you think that there were some corrupt deals, if you like, in those hospitals, you can pursue the corruption or whatever allegation you have, which ought to be investigated, pursue it, but allow the hospitals to be operational so that people can reap the benefit. Now, we're being told some of the hospitals, the generators, the engines, the machines, the equipments are run with power for almost 2 years. What it means is that it is piling up costs, because electricity bills and others are being piled for these institutions to pay. And for me, that is extremely another challenge. Now, health insurance, a lot of stories were told in this country. You had a government that also lied, and this lie was told by His Excellency the President, that they had cleared the arrears of national health insurance. When the Act itself establishing national health insurance, by the Act itself, you cannot have, arrears free, because the Act says that you need to investigate claims 3 months. So what it means is that even if you pay all arrears, you would definitely have 3 months arrears outstanding, because the Act helps you to be able to investigate them before payments are effected. Now, you inherited NHIE arrears of 1.2 billion. You came and then you paid a little below 300 million, and then you went to town and said, oh, you've cleared all the arrears. And after you have paid a little below 300,000, so what it means is that the arrears was supposed, ideally, at the time the payment was effected, to be about 900,000. In fact, you incurred an additional cost of over 700 million, because it's something that is running. It's something that is running. So at any point in time, you would have more and more people being brought on it. Today, what you, the media, and this hypocritical section of the civil society group and the clergy are made about has to do with the fact that they are no longer issuing new health insurance cards. And in fact, if your health insurance card expires, you will not have the opportunity to renew. Now, they claim that, these were social intervention programs that the MPP started, the NDC that claimed to be a socialist or a leftist political party. We have avoided such social intervention programs. We haven't done that, and therefore we should shut up. And I think that we need to begin recounting some of the social intervention programs that the NDC did. And by the way, the health insurance was started by the NDC. The piloting was done in Damangu, in the northern region. Granted that this government came and then they implemented it. Let's ask ourselves, what percentage of the Ghanaian populace were on the health insurance? Under Prof. Mills, up to the time of President Mahama, for the 80 years, what percentage of the Ghanaian population were brought on board? And I think that these are some of the issues. The other argument that is being made is that, look, but for the introduction of VAT, we would have had a challenge, because the health insurance percentage that is taken from VAT to run it is from the percentage of money, or the money that is taken to run the health insurance is taken from the value-added tax. A value-added tax which the NPP boycotted in Parliament. They didn't only boycott in Parliament, they demonstrated, of course, with other political parties and civil society groups. But I'm taking the current president. Indeed, he was one of the leading members of the demonstration. People were gunned down. A 14-year-old boy was gunned down. The blood of those people are on the hands of Nanado. When he had the opportunity to become the Minister for Justice and Attorney General, I remember there were people who participated in that demonstration, demanded that if under the NDC there was a deliberate, if you like, or a refusal to look for those who perpetrated that heinous crime. You have the power now. You are in government, and you are the Minister for Justice and Attorney General. Ensure that you use your office to bring to book those people who gunned down those 4 individuals. President Nanado failed to do that. Today, you turn around and the same VAT, you want to increase it. But let me make this point, even though it is not directly related, but it is related in a way, because we are talking about health delivery and the support that we get from the value-added tax. Now, we had Gabi Ochiridaku to write on his Facebook wall, virtually telling Ghanaians that you got to shut up and accept any 21% VAT. Increase it from 17.5% to 21, a little over 21%. You ought to accept it. You know what I think? Yesterday, I listened to Joy FM, and when I listened to Joy FM yesterday, and I was shocked. The news was that they picked information from the Flagstaff House that the president was against the increasing in the VAT that is being proposed to be presented in the mid-year budget. This was what Joy FM said, that their intelligence, the intelligence they have gathered from the Flagstaff House indicates that the president is against it and that it is the Minister of Finance who is pushing it, and that the president had asked the Minister of Finance to go and look at other alternative sources of generating revenue rather than the proposed 21% value-added tax. And I said, God save us. Who runs this country? This country is run by the president. We don't have any other president. Now, you know what I suspect, comrades? My suspicion is that government either one day want to make Nana Addo appear as someone who cares so much about the people of this country, as if reducing the value-added tax is a privilege to the people of this country. As if it is so. So what they are simply doing is that they may come out and peg it not 21%. They may do it like 20% and they say, oh, it took the intervention of the president to make the Minister of Finance reduce it from 21% to 20%. That is one possible scenario. Yeah, yes, that's exactly. I'm coming to that point. So that is one scenario. The other scenario is that they may not increase VAT. They may increase other taxes, so that they will say that, oh, President Nana Addo had indeed raised objection about these increases in VAT, and he's instructed that they shouldn't increase VAT. So they will come out with other taxes, as if other taxes should be accommodated by the people of this country, but VAT no. So President Nana Addo told the minister, and this was Joy FM, that their intelligence is that, oh, the president is not happy with the VAT. He asked the Minister of Finance to go and look at other alternative sources of generating revenue for this nation rather than VAT. So they may not come out with any increase in VAT. They may come out with what, in fact, some of us are picking, they call them super taxes. That they may come up with other taxes and say that President Nana Addo benevolence, his love for this country, he intervened that they shouldn't increase tax. President Nana Addo and your gang of appointees, you ought to be aware that the people of this country, we are not a bunch of idiots. Everything you do, we know before you think, we thought. Don't take us as fools. Now, whatever taxes you are coming out with are taxes that we will not tolerate, because you told everybody in this country that taxation is a lazy man's approach of governance and that you were not going to impose taxes. In fact, the vice president went ahead to say, when they asked him, so where are you going to get the money? He said, the Wyoming's money. They are going to tighten the loopholes. I think that you still have a moral duty and a responsibility to tell us where. And again, the Eastern Corridor rules. Interestingly, Eastern Corridor roads have become a village or a community road. You go to one area of it and you say, hey, I said it. This thing was not done. So I'm saying that they think that they can play a smart one on the people of this country. And that is why those who lost their lives because they believed that the value-added tax at that time was not the right way to go, they have been betrayed by one of the leading members, if not the leader, of that demonstration. The four people who lost their lives when he became the Minister for Justice and Attorney General never bothered to investigate the circumstances under which they were murdered. They will be turning in their grave. Now you have this attempted proposal. So let's get it very clear. There may not be any increase in VAT, but there is certainly going to be an outrageous increases in taxes, so that in one breath they can impose taxes and present Nana Addo as someone who loves and cares for the people of this country for not introducing VAT. Whether VAT or any other form of taxes are taxes. Whether Jonah swallowed the fish or the fish swallowed Jonah, there was a swallow. So you can't begin telling us that the president has intervened, that they should not use VAT, they should use other means of taxes, as if we are going to just accept that we are not kids in this country. So to conclude, Ishon, I think that the issues of health delivery should be something that should be of concern to everybody. And I am saying that this government has betrayed the 53% of our compatriots who gave him and his gang of appointees that opportunity to govern, that they have betrayed their trust, that the hospitals and health centers that were put up by President Mahama, those hospitals should, as a matter of agency, be allowed to operate for the benefit of the people of this country, the pettiness, the petty politics, the bizarre excuses given by the Minister of Health, and sometimes outright lies, and the government is completely unacceptable. They should allow those hospitals to operate. If they have questions, if they think that former appointees have questions to answer on them, let them. Now, on the issue of the ambulances, you realize that, thank God, that Comrade Segbefia had to respond. You had ambulances that were brought in. They described them as rotten ambulances. The ambulances came in, and the equipment to fit them also came. And I've heard people who say, why should you bring ambulances and bring equipment separate? There is nothing wrong with that. You can have ambulances because manufacturing car companies are different from those who produce or who manufacture those equipment. So you get the cars and then you fix them. Now the equipment are at the ports. Why are they not being cleared? Now you have a chairman of a party who can buy about 275 buses, distribute them among party members, yet they can provide ambulances to take care of the health needs of the people of this country. That is so sad, and it's unfortunate that we live in a country governed by this bunch of corrupt and incompetent individuals led by the most corrupt leader of the history of this country, particularly the Fourth Republican Constitution, who care less about the number of people who die, who care less about the number of desperate patients who are denied, the opportunity to have beds in their hospitals. He cares less. He doesn't think, he's insensitive to how many people who die in this country as a result of such avoidable mistakes in our health delivery system. Because if he cares so much about them, he would have, in a matter of urgency, ensure that those hospitals are operational to take care of the vulnerable needs of our society and people who desperately need them, so they can also survive just like him, just like his kids, just like his grandkids. Other people who are losing their lives as a result of his recklessness are also grandfathers, fathers, uncles, and also mothers and sisters of other families. You have a president who doesn't care so much, and for me that is extremely sad.
Thank you very much, Comrade Murtala Ibrahim Mohammed, for your submission. That brings us to 10 on the dot. Still here with us on your power station, Radio Gold 90.5 FM. I'll come straight to Mr. Bernard Mona for his thoughts on the matters of the health sector and issues arising. Mr. Mona, good morning.
Good morning, Asian. Permit me just a minute to pay tribute to the late Professor Atukwe Okai. I saw some news flash yesterday, and I noticed that a statement was issued by Professor Atilakpa Sawyer. I did not believe, and I had to check with him, and he confirmed that that is the sad news. Atukwe Okai has played pivotal and admirable roles for many of us, and it came to me as a shock. It appears that the month of July 2018 is a very sad month for many of us. Indeed, I also heard of the death of J.H. Mensah, a stalwart in politics, irrespective of where you stand. I've also noticed that in the same month we have Jordan Amate, an actor, and Kuntu Blackson also passed on. And of course, the Vice President, Emisata, also passed on. So may their souls rest in peace. I think that we have to look at the issue of the deplorable state of our health vis-a-vis the inaction and ineptitude of our government, and for me, the lack of consent that appears to be coming from our officials. If we are just taking the no-bed syndrome alone, or the absence of CT scan, we'll be doing elite politics with the situation of our health. There are many health centers, not hospitals, in this country that cannot get paracetamol to treat common headache. They exist. We have posted community health nurses and what have you to communities that when it is raining, they are not able to cross to the next village to attend to sick people. And so it appears that the entire health structure is weak and is coupled with a certain attitude of our current Minister of Health, who appears to take every opportunity to blame past regimes for the decay in our health sector rather than respond positively to the situation. It appears politics and partisanship is eating so much into our Minister for Health that he's not able to breathe beyond his nose. And so all the time when you listen to his pronouncement, it appears that partisanship is clouding him from acting in a manner that is decent. Indeed, it is not everyone that voted for Nana Akufo-Addo and the MPP that can be said to be members of the Dankwa-Buzia transition. It's not. There are many Ghanaians who genuinely thought that there must be a change in the leadership in this country, and they voted. Those Ghanaians don't think anything partisan. They just want situations to be fixed. They want things to be better than they were. And so if today the response we get from our minister is that this was not done yesterday, and therefore we are enjoined to do wrong today, then many people are wondering whether there was actually the need to do this change. See, as a person, I said it somewhere yesterday, and let me repeat, that 3 weeks ago, I was unwell and I moved to the hospital. The doctors looked around everywhere to get a bed to attend to me. They couldn't. They had to put me on a wheelchair to put me on infusions. And I'm sure possibly for me it was good. But for many others, sitting down is even a problem for them. They need to be stretched. They need to lie down. And there is no bed. And this is not even Kolebu that I'm talking about. I'm talking about the hospital in Medina. That bed space is a problem. So, if we do not have beds, and we are told that the Bank of Ghana has built a hospital, and it's not being used, it's not even mentioned anywhere that there is a date for which it will be commissioned for use. Meanwhile, it's been completed. Legon Hospital is there. All of us know the quality of that hospital and the kind of modern gadgets, equipments that are fixed there to enable us get proper health care. It's not being used because we have decided to engage in partisanship and pettiness as to whether the University of Ghana should be the ones administering or taking care of it, or is the Ministry of Health. At the end of the day, it is a blame game that, look, the hospital is not fully completed and that we need some money to buy generators and what have you. That is why we are not using it. And as Murtala said, a check at the hospital indicates that there are over 3 generators that will be capable of not powering only that hospital, but powering the entire Legon and beyond. So why is our minister lying with the health and life of the people of Ghana? And I applaud the Ghana Medical Association for coming to say that, look, Legon, Kolebu must treat and accept referrals. We should applaud them and maybe clap publicly for them. But I'm unable to do so because, look, the conditions at Legon is said that, Kolebu is said that it is not for the doctors to accept referrals and what have you, but that facilities are inadequate. In Sudu compound in Cape Coast, a lady whose son was stabbed. They arrived at Kolebu at 5 a.m. Not until 8 p.m. they were not attended to. Somebody stabbed this young man. So there was bleeding. And the person had to stay there from 5 a.m. till 8 p.m. to get attention. But for the fact that you can say maybe some divinity, that young man is not supposed to survive. Because you can't bleed from 5 a.m. to 8 p.m. under normal circumstances. So we have a terrible situation in our hands, particularly with reference to our health sector. If you go to Nadoli, they don't even have common X-ray. If you go to Wa until recently, they didn't have X-ray. People have to move to Japa or to other places just to take common X-ray. And we wake up and all that we hear is this everyday blame game. You see, I think that Mr. President have to do something. That one of the things that will compel our officials to act is that a statement or a fiat should be issued that all directors, chief directors, and all appointees of government must patronize Ghana hospitals and public hospitals, so that the health tourism that we are engaged in will stop. Because if our vice president is sick today and has been stabilized, and the next moment he is found in the United Kingdom, you think that the minister for health, if the child is sick, the child will stay in Ghana? No.
For what?
So everybody, all our officials, our appointees, are running to other countries to seek superior health care. And yet they have been entrusted with a responsibility to deliver superior health care for us. If you are not consuming something, how do you ensure that that thing is tasteful for others to consume? So if they are not patronizing the public health system, public health care system, how do we expect that they will be able to put in their all in order to ensure that we get the best out of it? That is the major problem that is facing us. But you see, as for human beings, you are like an engine. You are driving your car and it seizes, not so. So Mr. President could actually move from here to Sankana for an activity, and a sickness can befall you. It is at that time that they will be looking for the nearest facility to take you to. And you get there and realize that in that nearest facility there is no paracetamol. Our Minister for Health could visit any place. After all of us are social beings. You go for many other functions. In a function, you can collapse. And they'll be looking for the nearest hospital or health center. And you go there and you realize that there is no APC. So that is where you get to realize that toying with the health of our nation is not a partisan issue. And so this issue about we are not using this hospital because we did not build it, somebody built it, they did not do this, put the thing into use. They are saying that the hospitals have been overinflated. So if it is overinflated, by not putting it into use, that stops the overinflation. We have built it with state resources. And you come and say that no, the thing was overpriced. And because it was overpriced, your wisdom is that don't use it. Will that stop it from being overpriced, assuming what you are saying is true? So this thing is common everyday sense. That if you think there's something wrong in construction and what have you had occasioned, put the thing into use whilst you are doing your investigations to get to know whether somebody did something wrong or not. Put the Bank of Ghana Hospital into use. Put the Legon Hospital into use. Put the Dodowa Hospital into use. and complete the second phase of the Rich or Greater Accra Hospital. That is what the people of Ghana are looking for. But don't come and tell us that prices have been inflated. In any case, yesterday I was reading a story about what do we call it, satellite campus of the university in Somanya. And that once it took less than about 50 million pounds, you are taking 90 million pounds to go and develop a satellite campus in Bunsu. To put the main campus, it was not up to $90 million. The satellite campus is costing more than the main campus. So who is overinflating prices and cost of contracts? So I think that more importantly, and I need to commend you guys yesterday, even though I think that thing was just a minute of the problems that are confronting the health sector, but it brings to the fore that citizens are not willing any longer to allow officials who are surviving on state resources to continue to treat us with disdain and put our lives at risk. So I need to commend you for that. As I've already said, if Mr. President is minded, this is the time to ensure that all your appointees do whatever medical they have to do here, except in cases where doctors themselves refer you to go and seek some other treatment somewhere that they are not in a position to do.
But they refer every time.
If they are not in the position to do so, now some doctors will not do. Because I am told that President Kufuor had to do surgery. And the doctor said that they have the capacity to do it here. The only thing is that they don't have the equipment. And all he did was that they brought the equipment, the surgery was done, and I'm sure that the equipment by now is at the disposal for public use. So why not? So it's not every doctor that will tell you go outside when they know that, look, it is an opportunity to also make a name in treating such high-profile persons. So I think that if Mr. President is, after all, he has issued statement that people should not travel, apart from the Minister for Foreign Affairs. So such statements can be issued so that we know those who will be violating and those who will be respecting the president's order. That is the only way we can attend to some of these treatments that we are being subjected to. This nation is bigger than the partisanship that we are being treated to every day and every now.
Thank you, Mr. Mona, for your submission on the show this morning. I'll come to you straight, Ambassador Sampiali, for your comments on the health sector and matters arising.
Well, thank you very much. And it must be known that what we are dealing with concerns everybody. As my nephew said, that the human being is a machine that has to be maintained, and then if there's a problem, must be managed. It means that everybody, a child, an adult, whoever, has a health requirement. Now, if that is the case, then I expect that any government or a country that seeks the health needs of its people must be more serious than what we are doing in this country. The last time I was watching television, I unknowingly viewed the Minister of Health saying that people should not go to Kolebu with headaches and stomach aches. And I say, my goodness, does this man mean what he is saying? Does he know what is causing the headache? And sometimes very serious complications causes headache. You must know. And sometimes very serious complications in the body causes stomach ache. And maybe his understanding of headache is just this paracetamol or somebody's exhausted, that kind of thing. But Mr. Minister, I am sorry. Issues of health are not political issues. When we were about 6 million or thereabout, we had Kolebu as a hospital. Now we are about 32 or thereabout million, isn't it? And therefore, all those who have been put in charge of our health needs ought to be more serious than what they are doing now. Mr. Shen, what we are having is simply lack of logical medical administration. Simply put, lack of logical medical administration. We have a situation, our population is exploding, and therefore we must have facilities to measure up to it. Is that not the case? So what do we do as a government? Build more hospitals, build more cheap compounds, build health facilities that are closer to the people and are also available. Not only closer, because the Kolebu Polyclinic is closer to people, but it's not available. In terms of the facilities and what they expect to be done to them there. So, Mr. Shan, the whole world, United Nations Health Organization is realizing that health administration is no longer a political issue. It's no longer a political issue. So the United Nations itself has authorized specialists who are trained in hospital administration worldwide. And if you go to all the countries that I know, if you build a hotel, you can even employ specialist hotel managers, and so are health administrators. So health is no longer a political issue. Why am I saying this? If you do a count of how many chief executives we have lost at Kolebu in 10 years, the turnover is bigger than those who have left GSS to senior high school. Every 3 months or thereabout, we change Kolebu chief executive. Only yesterday, after 1.5 years in government, it was only yesterday that Kolebu had a board inaugurated. So in the interim, you sacked your chief executive. There's no board. Who manages this health institution? Autopilot. Autopilot. Now, it's about time, Mr. Shem, that as long as diseases are becoming very chronic, there should be specialized hospitals. You understand? Specialized hospitals, that says that we are treating hypertension, diabetes, and the oncology and all those, like the psychiatric hospital. You understand what I'm saying? Yeah. Nobody would get up and say, I have stomachache, I'm going to psychiatric hospital. Nobody will do that. You know, and so we need to build specialized hospital. Just like, let's say, if you say Legon Hospital, you know, it is maybe for eye and others. But you also build an outpatient department that takes care of the daily, one-on-one basis. The doctors have to see people, you know. So as specialists, they are there treating specialist cases. Then we should have general hospitals. But it looks like in these general hospitals admits everybody. You understand? So if, for example, you have hernia or whatever disease you have, you know where to go. But in this country, the specialist hospitals like we have in Kolebu from 200 beds are now to 2,000 beds. But the people of Kolegon alone are more than 2,000. The people of Kolegon, before Latabia Koshi, before, they are more than 2,000. So, no matter the somersaulting we do, this is just inadequate. If Kolebu is a specialist hospital, you understand, let us treat it as a specialist hospital.
Your Excellency, you have a call from Dr.
It's okay, don't worry.
Let us treat it as a specialist hospital. You understand? And then improve the satellite hospitals around it. You understand? Because we have Mamprobi Polyclinic, we have Keneshi Polyclinic, all around should be feeding towards Kolebu Teaching Hospital. Yeah. And so the doctors will periodically go to the satellite hospitals to give specialist ideas or instructions to the doctors there. Apart from that, the whole world over is also moving to ICT in medicine. What they do is that doctors in Kolebu may have signed up with doctors elsewhere, Cuba and the rest. So the Cuban doctors need not physically move to Kolebu to occupy space. You understand? The doctors we have in Kolebu are very, very qualified. And in fact, throughout the country, are very, very qualified. The only thing is that they haven't had the exposure as the other doctors. So what you do is that when you are having a procedure, you are dealing now with another doctor in Cuba or somewhere. And so if there's this thing, he's reading all the radiologists. And so he will tell you that, please, the temperature of this person is not consistent with his blood pressure. And check. You understand? And this is going on all over the world. Why is Ghana not doing it? Why is Ghana not doing it? Now, if you go to a hospital in Ghana, the first thing that you are required to do is go and extract your card or do a card. And that takes not less than 5 hours. Are you listening to me? That takes more than 5 hours. Sometimes they will come and say they don't find your folder. In India and other parts of the world, no records department exists. Yeah. As you go and you finish with your doctor, they give you your medical file folder. Are you following what I'm saying? Yeah. So there is no space to be occupied by the records department. Your folder is with you, so that if I move from Cape Coast to Takrady or to Sankana and I have a problem, I show my medical folder to the doctor at Sankana. And this man is hypertensive, and therefore I need to give him this. Why are we keeping record departments with old folders and also impeding patients, the right of seeing a doctor because he has not made a card? Even in emergencies, we are expecting people, with bleeding conditions like the one that was stabbed in Cape Coast, to be going to do a card. Whereas if the person was holding his card, he would have just shown that to the doctor and every entry would have been made. I went to Ridge Hospital recently and I insisted that I want to carry my folder. And it was with me. Whether I've broken protocols or not, I said I want my folder because I want continuity in my health administration. Why are doctors not doing that? Last time I told you, Shen, that when I was in India, the best hospitals in India want to have transactions with Ghanaian hospitals like Kolebu and the rest. Because they have tested Kolebu, Kompanochi, and they know that the doctors are substantively good in medicine and practice, but administration is a problem. So let us join them. The Apollo hospitals, the Asker hospitals and the rest, so that everything that they do, they will share with us. Doctors at Kolebu refused it. It was the guy from Kumasi, like I told you last time, who accepted it. If we had gone on this medical relationship with India and Bangladesh as we did, by now, we would have solved some of the problems we have. But their practices there are very, very tested. That's another way to solve the problem. If you go to the hospitals now, you will see patients who have been in the hospital for more than 3 months. Why? So maybe some of them are treating themselves as the prisoners. When they get out of the hospital, they will not get the care and attention in their houses. It's time to remove all such patients because they must be told that after a certain time, the best recuperation is when you're at home. The home environment gives you more recuperation than staying in bed. How come somebody who has been in the hospital for 3 months, 4 months, and is just on observation, will not be discharged? And then you see people having to buy plastic chairs. Plastic chairs for CTC scan. How come? How? If you go to Kolebu now and other health institutions that we have in this country, Mutala, you will see a lot of uninstalled medical equipment. A lot of them. A lot of them. I have known some MRI machines that were imported in Kolebu. Remember, Mr. the Anand's time? They imported some MRI machines. They stood outside in the rain for a long time. Either because the board, as usual, they didn't agree with the managing director or whatever. Why are we doing this to ourselves? Why? Mr. Muna mentioned about medical tourism. And if Ghana would wise up to that, it will really help us. You know, because there are countries around us that do not have our medical capacity in terms of, knowledge. So if you would create, let's say, Legon Hospital, Kolebu is already exploded, but create new hospitals that will cater for special diseases, like I have said. There will be people coming from Cameroon, like we go to South Africa, and that will be enough foreign exchange for us. Yeah. It will earn enough foreign exchange for us. I don't know whether I can recommend this. The serious hospitals, the biggest hospitals in this country, should leave the Ministry of Health immediately. They should be taken off from the Ministry of Health. They should be managed separately. Because if you go to Rich Hospital recently, all the equipment Mahama installed are beginning to give way. Because when they write to the ministry, money is not coming. So very soon, that hospital will collapse. But I want to congratulate the specialists and the doctors and the nurses there who are making do with what they have. See, Mr. Mutala, it is only bad management practice that is affecting us and political manipulation. Because if the Bank of Ghana Hospital has about 3,000 beds, 2,000 beds, added to that of Kolebu, we have 4,000 beds, isn't it? Yeah. So if you don't use the Bank of Ghana Hospital and somebody dies in his car, who is to be blamed? Yeah. In other countries, the minister would have been charged to resign. Because, see, if the thing is not there, it is not there. But when Mahama has provided cheap compounds and you are not providing nurses, all you are interested is that, I've paid nurses allowance. That's all you are interested in. But you are not also posting nurses. Nurses have to come and demonstrate naked in front of your offices, and they are still at home. Even our doctors are being asked to apply for our postings. There are doctors who have left hospitals and they are still at home, unposted. Whereas if we had made these hospitals, self-financing, Kolebu self-financing, University of Ghana self-financing, it is not that you are capitalizing it, but at least the hospital should work. How many patients you look at determines how much you are paid. The doctors will sit up. The pharmacists will sit up. It is time to introduce modern management systems in our health administration rather than appointing ministers whose general understanding is that don't send stomachache to hospitals. We need people who know what they're about and not those kind of ministers. Mr. Shen, 1.5 years in the NPP administration. If their only reason for not opening the Legon Hospital is the fact that it didn't have generators, it's a massive shame on this government. It's a big shame on this government. So if you know that the hospital doesn't have generators, Mr. Chen, why don't you import generators and go and set it there? But even in this case, as Mutala said, the minister was lying. So if the hospital was generating $1,000 a day, how many thousands of dollars have we lost? Is it not causing financial loss? Mr. Chen, apart from the human beings we are deliberately killing, the human beings this government is deliberately killing, but not giving the people around Medina and Legon a hospital facility like the University of Ghana Medical Center. Are we also not losing money? Did you see the Minister of Roads and Highways on television? No. After Nana Akufo-Addo had driven on that road, and then got what he needed to see, he got there and asked the minister, Why is this road not traced? Oh, this was one of the roads that we were investigating, and we have investigated and found out that the contractor was not involved in any malfeasance, so we have re-awarded the contract. This is what the minister said. This is what the minister said. So what moral justification that has Nana Akufo-Addo got to say that the Mahama administration is the cause of the deterioration of the road? When you came, you didn't even understand that Volta region produces cocoa. You didn't understand. And therefore did not see why cocoa roads, Minister of CMB should be developing the cocoa roads in the Volta region. Are you following me? Now you know that there are cocoa growing areas in the Volta region. And therefore, so the duration between 2017 and now, who should be responsible for? Now, if the contract was costing 90 million, how much is it going to cost on its re-awarding? And I'm told they gave a law firm $20 million, isn't it, to investigate these contracts and review it. Mr. President, 20 million CDs is a lot of $20 million is a lot of money. $10 million is a lot of money. We want to receive or see the report of that legal firm and the malfeasances Mahama administration conducted in this matter. Why are we doing this to ourselves? See, the opulence that was shown at the MPP Congress, couldn't they have been used to buy beds for Kolebu? If you went to Betum runabout, there were not less than 600 billboards of giant sizes. If a government cares for its people, they wouldn't do that. Now you come and say that don't send people to Kolebu. Mr. Minister, that is not the answer to the problem we have. The answer we want to have is that give Kolebu management, secure tenure of office. Do away with politics. Remove the hospitals from the clutches of the inefficient ministries that we have. If you go to the Ministry of Health, how many specialists in terms of administration are there? How many of them do you have? He's the chief director and the minister who knows maybe next to nothing about administration. It's time to take this country very serious. Our health needs are increasing. And I believe the next NDC government knows what it is about. We will continue to build more of the hospitals, the district hospitals. Is it not a shame that on the Ofanko Road or whatever, we have a hospital that is standing there and not commissioned? And Dodo Hospital, is it not a shame? Is it not a shame? So, Minister, instead of being serious and going to commission that, don't come and tell me I should not send my stomachache to Kolebu Hospital. Mr. Ishen, finally, I want to pay tribute to the Western giant, CK1, as he goes home today. CK has done what any African can do for the country. You may be too young to remember those Sode music, but it took Africa by storm. Mona, did you come to meet Ajo Yankee?
Oh, uncle. Uncle. He's a Mumbi Kaka.
Oh, he's
You didn't come to see Ajo Yankee. But that man goes home. But you see, gradually we are losing all our titans in high life. And it's a matter of concern. CK, rest in peace.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Sampiale, for your submission on our first topic. I'll come straight to Mr. Kwesi Pratt Jr. for his thoughts on our first issue as well. Mr. Pratt.
Well, I think the first most important point to make is that whatever happens in any society is dependent on the quality of healthcare. Indeed, our educational system.
I love Radio Gold 90.5.
Mental health system, which takes care of the health needs of our people. Production would suffer a great deal if healthcare delivery is not ramped up and so on. And I want to submit that every aspect of our national life, indeed of the life of people everywhere in the world, is highly dependent on the healthcare facilities available, the healthcare system that exists. And therefore what we are discussing is a very, very important matter. I like also to caution that this discussion of the country's health system and facilities should not be reduced to sensationalism, and we should not adopt a pedestrian attitude in that discussion. I want to submit that the kind of health system we have is a political matter, it's an ideological matter, and indeed is directly related to the kind of society we want to build. You see, if you take the United States of America, it is assumed to have, or it is believed to have, far more resources than the Republic of Cuba. And yet, according to standards set by institutions like the United Nations and so on, Cuba has a better healthcare system than the United States of America. You understand? What explains this? How come that Cuba, an island country of 11 million people with virtually no resources, the resources it has are sugarcane and tobacco and so on, is able to build a health system that is the envy of the world? How come that today, every year, Cuba has to send us 200 doctors? What is it that Cuba has done that Ghana has not done? And it's not just about Ghana. This small island country of 11 million people sends doctors to Tunisia, to Algeria, to South Africa, to Angola, everywhere.
In Ghana.
Yes. So how come, and it's the attempt to answer this question that will show the kind of problem that we have. Now, I'm not going to blame the New Patriotic Party for the situation that we have. I think it would be unscientific to do that. We all, with our eyes wide open, decided to vote for the New Patriotic Party. And the New Patriotic Party did not lie to us. The New Patriotic Party told us that it believes in a property-owning democracy, and has said several times over that it is not the business of government to do business, and so on. And we accepted to vote for the New Patriotic Party. Now, when a political party tells you that its ideology is property-owning democracy, and that it is not the business of government to do business, what it is telling you that it believes in the privatization of the essential services. You understand? That it believes that things ought to be done for profit and so on. And yet, we voted for the New Patriotic Party when it didn't lie to us, when it told us exactly what it wanted to do. Now, I'd like to show clearly what the problem is. You see, Ghana has a huge shortage of medical personnel. We have a huge shortage of medical personnel. We have a shortage of doctors. We have a shortage of nurses. We have a shortage of laboratory technicians and so on. This is the problem that we have. So one would have thought that in formulating policy, we will take account of this shortage of medical personnel and do things in such a way that we will produce a lot more doctors so that we will not become dependent on Cuba for 200 doctors a year, that we will produce a lot more nurses and so on. But what is the reality in Ghana today? The reality in Ghana today is that even the few doctors we have, some of them have been sitting at home for 2 years because we can't engage them. Now, even the few nurses we have, a large number of them, for the last 3 years and so on, are sitting at home. We cannot deploy them. You understand? So what is the problem? Why is it that we need doctors, we are not training enough doctors, and we have doctors that we cannot deploy? What is the problem? What is the problem that we need more nurses. We cannot train all the nurses we need, and yet even the few that we trained, we cannot deploy them, and so on. These are the basic questions that we need to answer. You understand? Real serious questions that we need to answer. Now, I find it very strange that if you go to the University of Ghana Medical School, in spite of the shortages that I've described and so on, the university reserves a certain number of places for foreign students. You understand? A certain number of places is reserved for foreign students. And the rationale is that we need money to run the university medical school, and that these foreign students pay the school in dollars, pounds, and so on, and that the school needs this money so urgently that those places should not be given to Ghanaians. I mean, what is the sense here? What's the sense here? What is happening? We are running the medical school as a business. Yes, we are running our medical schools as businesses. And we are running our medical schools as businesses because our governments have not committed sufficient resources to the institutions. You understand? And because our governments do not see these institutions as being of primary importance and so on, and are not committing resources and so on, the managers of these institutions have to run them as businesses. You understand? And then there is something else which just beats my mind completely. Listen, we have set qualifications for the medical school. And there are so many Ghanaians who are unable to meet those qualifications, either because they cannot pay the fees that foreigners are paying, or because they simply cannot meet those qualifications. I mean, now, to be able to advance in education, you have to pass English language and other subjects and so on. And sometimes I wonder, why English language, passing English, getting a certain minimum qualification in English language is so crucial to becoming an engineer or a doctor and so on. But listen, what happens? These Ghanaians who are unable to enter the University of Ghana Medical School because we say their qualifications are below par and so on, they all end up in Ukraine and other places. They are accepted there, they train there, they go to China and so on, come back as qualified doctors and work in our medical institutions. How foolish can we be? You understand? Now, when they go to Ukraine, China, and others, the foreign exchange that we say we don't have, and therefore we have reserved a certain portion of admissions in our medical school for foreigners and so on, is the same foreign exchange which is taken to pay for the education in Ukraine, in China, in Cuba, and other places. You understand? So something is wrong. We are not thinking properly. As a society, we are not thinking, and this problem is not a problem that came about 2 years ago. This is a problem that has been there for many years. Different governments have come and left, and this problem has been there. Simply doesn't make sense. And that is the situation. Listen, we have come to agree that we need a lot more nurses in our system and so on. So we've established nursing training institutions. We even have private nursing training institutions and so on. And then we recognize that, look, we have to pay these nurses, trainees allowances. And that the payment of that allowance has become a problem for the system. Of course, it shouldn't become a problem for the system if we look at other sectors. If, for example, we looked at mining and how we have handled mining in such a way that it has enriched the pockets of board members in Europe and South Africa and elsewhere, rather than enriching our national coffers, we can change that situation. But then we've come to the realization that, look, the payment of the allowance is a problem. Then you have the New Patriotic Party come and say that, look, we want more votes. We are going for an election in December 2016. We need more votes. So let's tell the nurses trainees that we will pay them a lot more. We will pay them the allowances and so on. So we pay them the allowances. We pay them allowances whilst they are in school. When they graduate, we cannot employ them and we cannot pay them. What sense is there in this situation? Where your nurses trainees, whilst in school, they get allowances. When they finish school, you cannot employ them and you cannot pay them. So they still cannot feed themselves, they still cannot provide for themselves and so on. Does it make sense? And then we say that because we are paying the allowances, and the allowances constitutes a major problem for the national budget and so on, now we will not train plenty nurses. We will train only those whose allowances we can pay. So you reduce the number of trainees so that you can pay the allowance. I mean, what kind of society is this? This is a completely crazy society. Unbelievable. But that is what we are doing to the health service and so on. Now look, let's be honest with ourselves. I mean, the last time I saw how much doctors take home, I began to feel sad for the doctors in this country. And you can check. Look, if you do galamsey, no, seriously, if you do galamsey, you can live a far more comfortable life than the doctor who has to stay in the university for 7 years and after that do housemanship and so on, and has to deal with life and death situations on a regular basis, on a daily basis. You understand? Our doctors are so badly paid and so on that sometimes I wonder why they become doctors, because there are so many things they can do without going to school, without making the sacrifices that they make and so on, and still earn more than being doctors. Indeed, why? What does it take to become a member of parliament? Somebody should tell me what it takes to be a member of parliament. Nice. You have to join NPP or NDC and be fortunate enough to be fielded as a candidate in a certain constituency. Yeah, you're straight on becoming a member of parliament. You don't have to have a university degree. You understand? You don't have to understand economics. You don't have to understand law or anything. You become a member of parliament. And yet every 4 years, listen to me very carefully, our members of parliament are entitled to ex gratia awards. Every 4 years, they have loans to buy 4-wheel drives and so on. Look at the conditions of the doctor and look at the qualifications for being a doctor and so on. In fact, it is more profitable to join political parties than to go to school and become a doctor in our society. So do you know the situation we have created now? Now, the doctors in public practice are also in private practice, because they also have children who they have to educate. They must also be able to buy food for themselves and their family. And they must be able to live like all the other people live in a society. So the doctor in the public practice is also in the private practice. You go to see the doctor in the hospital, the government hospital and so on, and he refers you to the private hospital that is going to work in the afternoon, even though the private hospital does not have the facilities that the government hospital has. Are you going to blame the doctor? How can you blame the doctor for this practice? It is the whole of society and our attitude which has led to this situation. You understand? Now, we are discussing the breakdown of scanners and so on in some of the principal hospitals and so on. It shouldn't happen. Yes, I agree, it shouldn't happen. How much is a scanner? How much is a scanner? One car by one public official can solve all the equipment problems that Kolebu has. I mean, look, some of these cars that our public officials drive around in Accra and so on are worth $120,000. Some of them $130,000 and so on. You understand? But you see, when we have accepted the situation that people must pay for their health care and so on, does it matter? Does it matter? I mean, I met somebody, an ex-soldier, and you see, an ex-soldier is a very special person. Do you know why an ex-soldier is a very special person? I mean, a soldier is somebody, if tomorrow our national sovereignty is threatened or anything, they are the people who push to go and die so that we can survive. They have elected to make the ultimate sacrifice for the good of the society and so on. So if you have an ex-soldier who has diabetes and is unable to go for dialysis because he cannot afford to pay for dialysis and so on, it should tell you what kind of society you are running. Why should diabetes, patients suffering from diabetes, be refused dialysis, which is part of the treatment, because they cannot afford? And if you look at the cost of dialysis, how many Ghanaians can afford? How many Ghanaians? The vast majority of our people, 90% of our population, cannot afford to pay for dialysis. You understand? So it means that we have condemned our people who would suffer from diabetes to death. The death sentence has been imposed on them. We should be worried about that situation. You understand? Now, you know, in medical offending, in the medical services and so on, all kinds of debates are going on today. Those debates reflect the different political and ideological positions we have in society. One of those debates simply is this. Should we place more emphasis on preventive medicine than curative medicine? That debate is ongoing all over the world. Where we should place the emphasis? Should we place emphasis on doing the things that prevent people from having malaria, or we should place emphasis on what we should do when people already have malaria? And this is an ongoing debate, you understand? Whatever position you take in this debate reflects your politics, reflects your ideology, reflects your class consciousness, and so on. I mean, Bernard Bona made a very brilliant point. We are talking about facilities which are not available in Kolebu and Rage and so on. You understand? That's what we are talking about. The vast majority of our people cannot have access to Kolebu or Rage Hospital and so on. The very life they lead has condemned them to poor quality health. I mean, look, Accra, we are living in Accra now. Drive your car 10 kilometers outside Accra. You will find people who are still living in windowless mud houses roofed by thatch. These are people who have to walk 3, 4, 5 kilometers a day to their farms. They walk to their farms barefooted. You understand? They weed with cutlasses and so on. They are susceptible to snake bites. An anti-snake offending serum is not available. Look, I had the misfortune of being bitten by a dog a couple of years ago. You understand? Fortunately, I live by the community hospital in my area, Musuku Community Hospital and so on. So I rushed to the hospital. I've been bitten by a dog. Me sitting here, bitten by a dog. The doctors looked at me and so on and said, oh, but the anti-rabies thing is not available in the hospital. So they then said I should go to Kolebu. I went to Kolebu Teaching Hospital. It was not available. I was then referred to another government hospital. I went to 5 government hospitals in Accra a couple of years ago. I could not get an anti-rabies medicine. You understand? Eventually somebody told me that there's a small pharmacy in front of the Kolebu Teaching Hospital. Private pharmacy. Private pharmacy, small private pharmacy, not bigger than this room, than this studio. That's where I went and got the medicine. So just imagine the number of Ghanaians who are likely to be bitten by dogs and the dangers they face and so on. Who is thinking about these things? I mean, the other time we were talking about meningitis, you understand? And then we were told that the vaccine was not available. The vaccine has to come all the way from, is it the United States of America or something? We have to wait, it's not available. And yet, all of us know that at a certain period every year, we become more susceptible to meningitis and so on. Why do we wait for the outbreak and so on? I don't understand. You understand? Now, if you look at, let me give you one example that I know fairly well. You know, in Cuba, every citizen, and I mean every citizen, it is compulsory for every citizen every year to go for a full medical checkup every year, compulsory. Now, if you don't report for the full medical checkup, the doctor is supposed to come to your house to find out why you have not reported that year for your full medical checkup. If satisfactory answers are not given and so on, it is the obligation of the doctor to report to the police, for the police to compel you to go and have your full medical review for the year. Now, if you have such a system, how can something go wrong if every citizen at least once a year has to go for a thorough medical checkup? It is compulsory. And there are these systems put in place to ensure that. How can anything go wrong? Do you know the rationale for this? The rationale for this is simply this. If one person has a certain condition which is undetected and so on, it can spread throughout the community and become a medical emergency and so on. So it becomes compulsory. The system insists that every year you have to go for a checkup. You understand? Now, what is the attitude here? Your health is your own problem. Your health is not the problem of the entire society. It's your private problem. Sami Ishan, how many times have you not driven out of your office and met somebody asking you for money to be able to go to hospital? How many times? You understand? Should our medical needs and so on be dependent on the size of our pocket? Should it? And this is an ideological question. It's a political question. Should citizens' health conditions be dependent on their ability to pay? This is a fundamental question that we need to answer. You understand? And how we answer it would also determine or would also show us the kind of society we want to build. I want us to build a new Ghana in which nobody goes to bed on an empty stomach. We have to be able to build a new Ghana in which everybody gets treatment for whatever disease they have, not dependent on the size of their pocket. We have to build a new Ghana in which resources are centralized in order for the state to play a leading role in the provision of education for our people, healthcare for our people, and so on. That's the new Ghana we need to build. If we don't accept that new Ghana, and that new Ghana can only be built on the basis of the principles of socialism, if you don't accept that new Ghana, forget it. You cannot build that Ghana we want on the basis of capitalism. Capitalism, its rationale is that everything should be made available or denied on the basis of how much profit individuals are making. That's the basic principle in capitalism. And you cannot build a capitalist society and expect an effective functioning health system. It is not possible. This is the only explanation why America, you understand, Cuba has far less resources and so on, and yet it is able to build a medical system which is far superior to that of the United States of America. So we should not be tinkering with the problem. We should not be engaged in sensationalism and so on. We should begin to ask the fundamental questions and begin to find concrete solutions to the concrete problems that face our people. And there's only one way to resolve this crisis, to build a new society based on fundamentally new principles which recognize the equality of all citizens in everything.
Thank you very much, Mr. Pratt, for your submission. You're still here with us on your power station, Radio Gold 90.5. It's 11 on the dot, and time to share with you your text messages that you've sent on the show this morning. I will start from the tweets that I have this morning. This one from Rosemary, and she tweets, please, okay, all right, it has to do with the microphone at the time he had started. Habib from his home says, good morning to you. The no bed syndrome is an indictment on NPP government. Why UGMC still under lock? The level of hardship and corruption being perpetrated on Ghanaians is unprecedented. Yet, this insensitive government wants to increase VAT to 21%. Wake up, Ghana. Martins Didi tweets and says, to be honest, some PLA's return from India has been tremendous. His ideas in the health sector for the past months of listening to him has been superb. Good idea for patients to carry their folders along. Ms. Sapo tweets and says, this problem in our health sector is so pathetic. It's time our health professionals change their attitudes towards patients. Our leaders care less because they can always fly their relatives outside for medical care. God save us all. John Terry tweets and says VAT is going up from 17.5 to 21.5. Taxation to production. Yet NPP fanatics will come and say propaganda. The only word they've learned in reply to the realities on the ground. We've been scammed. Ghana is bleeding. And that's from afar. Couldn't join you. I pray it all went well. Yes, it did go well. And okay. All right. Let me go to the Facebook and see those comments that I have at the moment. Daniel Weguri tweets and said, God bless Uncle Kwesi Pratt for his great vast knowledge in these contemporary times. I only pray God grants him long life so that Ghana can benefit from his tremendous knowledge and experience. Please let him know I am his follower. I'm sure he's heard that already. Let me read some few other messages as well that I have gotten on Facebook. This one from Charles Nyame from Asamankesi says, this is Ghana now, where there are no beds at Korle Bu and patients are forced to buy plastic chairs for treatment. Yet we are happy and find no problem about ruling party splashing $11 million on buses for party people. God save us. John Mahama indeed was too good a leader and president. In regards to the Eastern Regional Chairman, Teria Boateng. And this one from Kwame Prekese, aristocrat from Old Barrier, says, asking patients to go to the market and buy chairs to enable them get treatment can be cumbersome and frustrating. I suggest Korle Bu takes advantage of the situation to start selling the chairs themselves. As a renowned rural bank accountant who knows nothing about health, as a health minister, he should also know that the nurses and doctors also need jobs to do and to cure their Ghana Beyond Aid rhetorics. I don't think people around Ofanko, Kasua, CP, Legon, and other areas across the country will go to Korle Bu with headaches if their health centers are being operationalized. And this one from Tommy Nubuo says, let us remind ourselves too that there is even Korle Bu Polyclinic within Korle Bu. And that is your comment as well. Ken Farouk sends the message. Good morning to you, Ishen, and your able panelists. Isn't it ironical that our nation doesn't have CT scans and hospital beds, but the president and his gang are ready to use $1 billion to do a yes or no referendum to create regions? Use $150 million to do road safety campaign. Why are we not getting our priorities right? Sick people are being admitted in our hospitals, sitting on plastic chairs, and our taxes are being put in wrong places. Ken Farouk sent that one through. Musa Abatwa in Kumasi says, the hypocrisy and MPP are inexplicably... Okay, you wish to say... let me try and rephrase. I think you want to say hypocrisy and NPP are inexplicably intertwined. In opposition, they preached gospel. In power, they act otherwise. We have no bed in our hospitals, but they find it necessary to buy buses for their constituents. That's NPP's priority. We are not idiots. If Akufo-Addo thinks he can fool us for the second time, then he should better think twice. That from Musa Abat. Stephen Kabnatu says the message. Good morning, Yeshan. Isn't it surprising that by virtue of the opportunities I have had in life resulting in me having a passport and birth certificate, I would have to register for the Ghana card and turn back home to testify that my mother, father, my uncles is who carried me on their lapses when I was born are Ghanaians? I'm sure they would ask me how I became a Ghanaian if they couldn't have been what a country. McDowell says, where are the Clergy Society Group, Catholic Conference, Christian Council, Ghana Bar Association? What would have been the President Mahama had inherited these projects from the MP government and the decision had been taken not to continue or to open them? You see, what is good for the goose is equally good for the gander. That from McDowell, then that through, bringing us to 8 minutes after 11. You are welcome if you joined the show morning. We're moving on to our next issue, which has to do with the president's tour of the Volta region. The assurances that he's given that Voltarians will not be disenfranchised in the 2020 elections, and that the issuance of the Ghana card is not to bar them in any way from registering. Also, the concerns about the ban on registration of Fs in the Volta region and the concerns raised by the minority. I'd like to start with you, Mr. Bernard Muna, on our second issue, the Ghana card, Volta region, and matters arising.
First is the question of who is a Ghanaian. And I think that the question of who is a Ghanaian has been a difficult but a settled one. That the Constitution recognizes that you are a Ghanaian when by birth and by parent you can be in. And in part, the Constitution also recognizes that if any of your parents or grandparents, and that's where sometimes I have a problem. If any of your parents or grandparent is or was a Ghanaian, then you are a Ghanaian. And this can open up for many interpretations. Because if your grandparent is a Ghanaian, and the Constitution says that if he or she is or was a Ghanaian, you are a Ghanaian. So you can have many people who actually are not of Ghana, but because of the fact that their grandparents were Ghanaians, they are also Ghanaians. That said, you have to go and seek an interpretation on that particular meaning when it says he or she was or is a Ghanaian. The second important thing is that if you were born in Ghana or a child found in Ghana, a child below 7 years is found in Ghana, and there cannot be any trace of a parent, that person is also a Ghanaian. I come from a background where many of our people are not born in hospitals or in health centers. In fact, the meaning of our surname, Mona, depicts that our grandfather was born in the bush, on the way to the farm. There are many people who were born on the way to fetching water. Some were born in the market, Dana. I hope you understand. So some of the names you can link to where the person was born. You are born in the farm, you are called Wiena. It means a farm king or chief. Dana, it means you are born in the market, and so on and so forth. When these people are born there, you'll be lucky to have somebody lettered to take a charcoal and write that on this particular day you were born on a wall. So these births just came about. What we have done is that those who are lettered have decided that by the dates that somebody claim, or if you are lucky to have gone to school and your teacher gives you a certain date, because they have to put your date of birth and all that, they give you that date become your birthday. So you don't have a birth certificate. and you grow up, there is no opportunity for you to want to make a passport, because passport is a travel document. And if you don't have any foreign travel in mind, you go and pay for a passport that has an expiry date, that it will expire. You don't need it. You don't think that you will ever travel. So people, many of our age, do not have birth certificates. And if you are not lucky, and you come from the stock that I come from, and your parents don't understand even the significance, even where they have a birth certificate, they may not know where it is. Some mice would have eaten it. So coming across a birth certificate for many of our people is a problem. So it says with passport. The last time I went to Wa, a friend of mine who is in MPP, an Alhaji, when I asked him about his birth certificate, he said, why am I talking about birth certificate? Because his father or his parents died so many years ago, and they did, if they are any at all. And I said, but you went to Mecca. He said he went to Mecca 12 years ago to become an Alhaji. So the passport that he acquired 12 years ago is expired. That person is not a PNC member. That person does not belong to the NDC. That person is of the MPP. If you are going to go strictly by birth certificate and passport, that person will not get the opportunity to be registered as a Ghanaian. Is this not just simple? That person has a voter ID card. And you know, listening to Akando this morning, I think that he did a good job. If you are going to get a birth certificate, nobody goes to stand to contest your birth. You go to the birth and death registry, and you put your identification and what have you, and then they issue you with your certificate and you go. You provide the information and you go. You take the birth certificate. If you are going to get a passport, nobody goes to stand at the passport office to challenge your capacity to hold a passport. But if you have to obtain a voter ID card, it goes through rigorous. Look, you go to communities and they'll tell you, no, okay, you may be a Ghanaian, but we don't know you from here. Who is your parent? Who is this person? Where do you come from? They will challenge you before you can obtain a voter ID card. So if the voter ID card is seen as an imperfect document, then birth certificate cannot come near perfection. Passport cannot come near perfection. What will adding the voter ID card as one of the documents necessary to identify me as a Ghanaian subtract from the current ongoing registration of Ghanaians under the national ID card system? What will it subtract? Apart from adding more, it is the same national ID authority that told us that about 2 million Ghanaians have passports. And by their checks, about 7 million Ghanaians have birth certificates. And since you cannot obtain a passport without having a birth certificate, it is assumed and can be concluded safely that the 2 million is part of the 7 million. The 2 million holders of passport are necessarily part of the 7 million people who have birth certificates. We are talking about a population of nearly 28 to 29 million. And when it comes to that, about 15 million of the population own voter ID cards. So if you are using birth cert and national passport, the total you get is less than half of the people who have the voter ID card. So on what basis would we formulate a law that exclude the number one card that gives us authority to elect people to lead us. The card that gives only exclusive rights to Ghanaians. Because if you are not a Ghanaian, you cannot register. And so I don't get the head and tail. When Mr. President himself decides now to waddle in this argument that because some members of parliament sat and passed a law that is not adequate, they are estopped from coming to say that the law is inadequate to address the question of who is a Ghanaian. So Mr. President wants to say yes. So for the fact that our parliament sat and passed a law, irrespective of how inimical that law is, we should live with it. And this is a president who sometimes come across as a man who understands or is born in history. That history will tell Mr. President that the bond of 1844 was a law, but it was a bad law. It was resisted and thrown and jettisoned. So bad laws must not be allowed to survive by good citizens, because particularly when it has to do with who is a Ghanaian. You see, the president now goes to the Volta region to tell the people of the Volta region that, look, contrary to speculations that the Ghana card is tended to ensure that they are not given to citizenship, is false. It was Mr. President's own running mate, Vice President, who decided to go and say at a press conference that after doing 10% simulation of Ghana and Togo register, over 76,000 people from the Volta regions, their names are on the Ghana register, and that the voter register is not credible. That is 10%. So if you do the mathematics right, if 10% is equals to 76,000, 100% will be equals to what? That's why we do ratio and proportions. Not so. So clearly, you did 10%. Holding other variables constant, you will expect that 100% conclusion will give a certain indication that the voter register, and in particularly many Ghanaians who are said to be Togolese, and if you are talking about many Ghanaians that are Togolese, we are largely referring to the Volta region, even though some parts of the northern region you may have the bursaries and what have you, and you can have the leakage. But largely we are talking about the Volta region. Why are you denying them? Why has it taken some of the information I have you can't say? But you go to the Volta region, the registrar at the birth and death, two of them have been sacked in less than 15 minutes. All of us know that when it comes to issues of the birth and death registry, it has to take the head of civil service to do transfers. So how come that it is the Ministry of Local Government, through its chief director, maybe with instructions from the minister, that has to sign letters that were sent on the same day, arrived on the same day, and you were expected to report in Accra on the same day? Why? Why not the Ashanti region? Why not Greater Accra region? Why is it that it is only the Volta region that has to suffer that fate? Because no other region has suffered that fate apart from the Volta region and the head of the birth and death registry in Accra. And why do you give them in a day, move from Volta region and report to headquarters in Accra for reassignment? And that in so doing, hand over to the regional minister, but also ensure that every registration, even if people are born today and they want to register, you seize it. Don't register anybody in the Volta region. So what could be the rationale? What is it that has suddenly motivated this? Because it was said that in the wake to the Ghana card issue, some NGOs have suddenly become so philanthropic that they are mobilizing citizens and taking them to birth and death registry to go and register them so that they will now be citizens. So I don't get it. You see, you need the entire nation to back this. This thing you are doing is an elite thing. It's elitism. As I said, birth certificate, if you are born from where I am born and you are born under a shea tree, you will not have one. Or a dawadawa tree. You will not have one. As for passport, I've already concluded that it's a travel document. And indeed, if you are even traveling within ECOWAS, you necessarily don't need a passport, particularly if you are traveling by road. So what is this that I cannot get into? But it appears that what we are doing is not sufficient. But this issue, sitting on radio stations or on television stations or doing press conferences, is part of the elitism that I'm talking about. Because the chunk of our society do not even understand the press conferences and the big English we write there. So our people down ought to be told in plain language that care is not taken, they will not be considered Ghanaians. Will it be a repeat of the fact that some people were said to come from some other parts of the country or of the world, and between some 1970s or 69, they were asked to go to where they come from? That may be what we are tendering to, given the rigid posturing of our government. The other surprising thing of all this is that once the Electoral Commission is given exclusive right to evolve its own register, we are being told that the National Identification Authority and its card could become the basis for a voters' register. That is what the man said in Parliament. That why not? When we finish compiling this process, the Electoral Commission, after all, may have no duties again compiling a new register. So the voters' register will simply be extracted from that process. Whatever it is, it's part of compromising the independence of the Electoral Commission. So voter ID card is not being used. People at the helm of birth and death registry are removed. People at the head of the Electoral Commission are removed. If we are not careful, this nation will run into serious and deep troubles because of the posturing of Ken Atefa and in particular President Nana Akufo-Addo over who should become a Ghanaian and who is not to become a Ghanaian.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mona. I'll come straight to you, comrade, for your thoughts on this matter.
Well, I think that my brother has said a lot of the issues I otherwise would have said. So I'm going to avoid some of them because of the limited time we have. Let me say first and foremost that I listened to the minority press conference, which was eloquently delivered by my good friend and brother, Comrade Okujeto. But let me state that this thing this government is doing is not directed at only the Volta region. It is directed at the Zongos. That must be made very, very clearly. It is not only against Volta region. It is against all Zongos. And we are aware of meetings that have been held and that the NDC strongholds, apart from Volta region, which is very known, are also the Zongos. They can't create a ministry for Zongo as a decoy to deceive the people of the Zongos. They have demonstrated this not today. They have always, the Buza Danko tradition have always and consistently considered the people of Zongos as non-Ghanaians. They demonstrated it in their actions and inactions. The extent to which the Aliens Compliance Order was introduced as a law in this country to drive away Zongos, and some of the Zongos properties are being occupied by leading members of NPP today. People should find out even where the president is living, whether those properties were not properties of the so-called Nigerians and other foreigners who were in this country. I can give you several examples of properties that were owned by the Zongos, and the Buzia Danko tradition drove them away under the yoke of a so-called law which they describe as the Aliens Compliance Order, and got rid of these people. Now, people thought it was enough until 2005, when Thomas Bruni, was it 2004, 2005, Thomas Bruni took Collins Dauda to court. Collins Dauda, who before even Thomas Bruni taking him to court, was a member of parliament before, took him to court on the ground that he wasn't a Ghanaian. So everything this government is doing is to disenfranchise people in Volta region and the Zongos. I have heard some of them say, oh, they formed Nasara and Nasara delivered the Zongos to them. How do you deliver Zongos when NDC won almost all the seats in the Zongos? Almost all the constituencies in the Zongos, NDC won. So how could the Zongos be delivered to NPP? So the agenda is not only directed at Volta region, it is also directed at the Zongos. So if someone says that we should not be talking about 1969, what about 2005? What about subsequent statements that have been made as recent as 2016? You had leading members describing people from Zongos as non-Ghanaians. So I think that it should not be a fight for only the people in Volta region. It should be the fight for all Zongos, and it should be a fight for all well-meaning Ghanaians. Those hypocrites in 2016 who found new friends in the NPP and who are from Volta region, they should bow down their heads in shame. They should bow down their heads in shame. Because this direction is not about NDC, NPP. It's about a whole region and a whole group of people. That is what this directive, this attempt to disenfranchise is. Political parties are not religions. At any point in time, you find people belonging to one political party, another time they belong to another political party. 2, let's interrogate even the entire Ghana card. Canada, Japan has accused Professor Atifwa that he gave that contract to that company and took land as bribe. And in this country, we have been told that because Canada and Japan made the allegation and Professor Atifwa denied it, that ends it. Don't talk about it. I mean, like, seriously? Several allegations were leveled against people in NDC. They denied. Yet you insisted. The hypocritical section of the civil society, the hypocritical section of the clergy, you insisted they ought to be investigated. Now you can't find your voices. They are all in the complete state of incommunicado. On issues that affect this government, they don't even talk. Even when you have people in an attempt, they gathered the courage to talk about some of these ills, they said that the NDC also did what? Absolute rubbish. Absolute rubbish. Now, even those who gather the courage to condemn the ills of this government, they can't condemn the ills of this government in isolation. They would have to desperately look for similar thing that happened under NDC, bring it in to neutralize the independence and the objectivity which they attempted to portray to the people of this country, that yes, we are condemning this because the NDC also did this. The NDC never engaged in some of these ills. How? That he took bribe. He took land as bribe before he awarded the contract. Is it not the same Professor Atifwa on that disastrous bus robbery Amina scandal? What credibility has that man got? What credibility? And what credibility has he got? That there is this attempt, but you know what? I don't know who is deceiving this government. Sean, I have done some work on conflict in the sub-region. And I speak on these things with profound emotions and passion because I witness. As a result of that work, I traveled to some countries. Have you seen the conflict in Liberia? Mm-hmm. The conflict in Sierra Leone? The conflict in Ivory Coast? The conflict in Chad? The conflict in even Burkina? If anybody tells you that those conflicts were not created as a result of attempted disenfranchising people, that person is not telling you the truth. The issue of diamond in Sierra Leone was just the immediate causes. Like everything has an attempt to say that you are a non-citizen, you are not supposed to participate in our electoral processes, you are not this, you are not that. Every single thing had to do with attempted disenfranchising people in those countries. Yet this government is not learning. I don't know who is deceiving them. Perhaps they sit down and think that if you are the commander-in-chief of the Ghana Armed Forces, you control the military, and therefore you can do anything. All those countries, those who control the security agencies, fled. They ran. All those countries. And when we are raising these issues, people say, you are beating war drums. We are reminding you. And that is why Cesaro says that if you fail to know or to learn about what happened before you were born, then you forever remain a child. All the experiences are there for everybody to see that many countries, many democratic dictators attempted what you are doing today and plunged those states in a state of chaos and anarchy up till date. So why would you want to charter same path? As if Ghana is just a child's play. That they sat down in their most wobbling mental processes. They just sat down and thought that yes, we can do this. Let's get off the electoral commissioner and her 2 deputies. Let's get off the births and death registrar. Let's get this. Let's do these processes so that we'll come out and have people registered through the Ghana card. We'll use the Ghana card as the basis for compiling a new register. As if we had President Nanado and your gang of 110 needless appointees. You cannot toil. You cannot toil with the destiny of this country. And I think that it is about time some members within the security agencies reminded them that many countries have attempted that and plunged those states in chaos. This is the only country we have. President Nanado kids are not in Ghana. They come and go. His grandchildren are not here. Gabi Ochudaku's family are not here. Or they come and go. Asante Bediotu, they can leave at any time. And you, the foot soldier of the MPP, and myself, we have our family here. It is our collective responsibility to protect the safety of this country. So when you have a president and his family, his nephews and nieces, not everybody in the MPP agrees with this recklessness. Just those cloak of individuals. When they are taking steps, chartering a path that threatens the security and the stability of this country, we need to point out to them. And pointing out to them doesn't mean anybody is playing any or beating any war drum. Because we have seen several countries. Now, if we do not know or have soon forgotten what happened in Liberia and Sierra Leone, what about Ivory Coast? It had to do with the same actions. This person cannot contest. This person is not an Ivorian. This person is not this. Look at where it led people to. There is a proverb in Dagbani. And if you permit me, Sean, with Sasuduan, this is the part of if I'm lying on the same bed with you, now I lie towards the wall, and then you ask me, shift, and I'm just shifting. I'm shifting. You are shifting closer to me. When I get to the wall and I can no longer shift, you know what I'll do? I'll begin to hook. Let no one, and I don't know who is deceiving this super incompetent president and his family, his cousins and nephews, who are those masterminding this. I don't know who is deceiving them. If they are deceived into thinking, they can do what they are doing, they are making a grievous mistake. They can't do it. We are not going to fold our arms in this country to allow them determine to us how we determine who lead this country at any point in time. The democratic rights of everybody must not be tampered with. People have the right. If we go to the polls and the people of this country think that they ought to renew or they must renew your mandate, regardless the mess, regardless the outright thievery, the corruption, the mess that you have created, the division, the instability, the political and security decay, the fact that you are hitting ethnic groups upon ethnic groups, the fact that you are hitting tribes upon tribes. If the people of this country decides that regardless all these ills, they want to renew your mandate, so be it. Let them renew it. And we would have all been satisfied that we went through a democratic processes that is fair, transparent, and objective for everybody. Now, if Ghanaians go to the polls and decide to renew your mandate, regardless all this mess you have created, who questions that? Nobody can question that. But don't just attempt to do that. Look, and in all those countries, Sean, but the work I have done, those who started the chaos, they were the first victims. Those chaos consumed them and their families first. If you think you are so protected, you are so insolent. Look, the people of this country, particularly the security agencies in this country, are more professional than many security agencies across the country. And that is why I was expecting them to be telling this government, you are treading on a very dangerous path. Don't do it.
All right.
More so when you have civil society groups, political parties, and even now the Christian Council. You have all the former presidents. You have traditional leaders who have all pointed out to you. Don't attempt what you are attempting. Don't try to do it. Yet this government is bent on doing that. Regardless all the caution, regardless the fear that is being expressed, and as if the people of this country are just going to fold their arms and allow them to do what they want to do. More so when there are several dissenting voices within the MPP who are cautioning this government and say, don't chatter on this path. Yet this government is refusing and is bent on doing that. But you see, I think that if we had listened to the voices of Mr. Kofi Kumsen, former President Kofi Juma, what's the name? Mr. Dr. Nyahu Tamakulu and co. I don't think we would have been in the state in which we are. They warn us about the consequences of President Nana Addo being a president. But trust me, Ghanaians will remember one day the monstrous nature in which they were governed by President Nana Addo.
Thank you, comrade, for your submission. That brings us to 20 more minutes before we hit the top of the hour, 12. Ambassador.
Well, in these discussions, I miss Dr. Taniedo so much because Dr. Taniedo's view is very clear on this matter. You know, I like Mr. Kwesi Pratt because he puts some of these issues in their own context historically. And this morning I want to try and emulate him. When it became obvious that the white man could no longer rule us, the question was, what type of country do you want to establish for yourself? Whereas Kwame Nkrumah believed that as an African country emerging from new colonialism for a long time, we need a unitary government with socialist fundamentals. Those in the other group who had resisted Kwame Nkrumah said, we want to have a federal state in which regions or an area's wealth and its ethnicity was the regions where they should create those regions. So they came out with slogans like Matemehu, you know, Matemehu, and these are not mere words. They were used for political mobilization. And eventually, the history is that Kwame Nkrumah won. But as to whether this policy that has been so imbibed in those people had changed. From historical events, this has not changed at all. And that it had come to the fore anytime they were in government, things of this nature happens. So, for example, in a debate, somebody raised an argument in debate. Victor Usu disagrees with him. You understand? And all you could say was that you people are inward looking. I hate tribalism in my politics. That you people are inward looking. For a long time, the people of Volta region never forgive the NPP tradition for this classification. If you go through the history of this country and the way people have been classified, they used, with the greatest respect, they used to refer to some people like Ntafo with demeaning connotations. Before, you know, when somebody says Akani, the emphasis is not to bring out any demeaning message. So, for example, if Kennedy Japan said, what does it mean? That a section of Ghanaians should attack another section of Ghanaians. In Rawlings' time, something came out that Rawlings was appointing Aibufongwa. When the result came, and only a few others had been employed by Rawlings, they kept quiet. Compare that to today. The number of Akims and Ashantis in this, our government. I am not in any way trying to tribalize the issues, but I am giving a chronicle of the things that make the people of Volta region feel the way they are feeling. That makes the people of the Zongos feel the way they are feeling. Because if a government comes, and in spite of the fact that I went to school with a lot of Lagosians, I went to school with a lot of Burkinabes, and all you could say was that Alata Fomunkum Krum in 69. You know, so when people who are historically minded see the things happening now, we can not resist by saying that it is happening again. Mutala, you are very right. Most of the properties in the new town was formerly called Accra, was formerly called Lagos Town. Where Kwesi place, Kwesi Mamubire, it's all Lagos Town. And all the big buildings were built by the Lagosians and foreigners. As soon as they brought the Alien Compliance Order, the MPP people bought all the properties. If anybody doubts, they should go to Cape Coast, going to Infantipim. There's a house called Olifo Bawumi House. And that is where the Bodiments people live. Bodiments was a steward of MPP. That house belonged to Nigeria. If you go to Takrady, there was also another Lagos town, now called Sawmill. All the big houses from there to airport were also belonging to Nigerians. And the owners now are NPP people. So people have good justification to suspect that these things are happening again. Mr. Eshan, if you read Article 42 of the 1992 Constitution, I was there when they wrote the Constitution. It says every Ghanaian citizen, every citizen of Ghana of 18 years and above and of sound mind has a right, has the constitutional right to vote and is entitled to be registered as a voter for the purposes of elections in this country. Then, if this is a constitutional provision, what is the difference between this and what Kanati Force Law Act, whatever, National ID Identification is saying? That act and the Constitution, which is superior? I'm surprised that Atefa is giving this interpretation of this region interpretation of the Constitution. Because even if you read their own act, it says the birth certificate, this, and any other information. Is that not what the law says? Okay. In law, there's something called the principle of idem generis, which says that if we are talking about car, bicycle, and all the motor vehicles that runs on the ground, that excludes an aeroplane. But any like thing, it should be included. That is the principle of law, and Kenatefa knows this. So the law is that if you mention a birth certificate, if you mention a passport, and any other thing that is used to identify anybody, then automatically the law accepts that the voter's ID, which is also used to identify a Ghanaian to vote, is included in the law. So the argument as to whether Parliament made a mistake or not can all be contained in this one. In any case, we passed so many laws in this country, and there are always amendment clauses attached to the law, isn't it? So if, for example, this law that is supposed to exclude some Ghanaians, majority of us, from voting, exercising our franchise by registration, Muna asked the question, what would it deduct from the concept or the practice we are undertaking by including the voter ID card? What is so criminal or so undesirable of the voter ID card? Let us compare the voter ID card to the passport. Mudala, if you went to Sankana post office, you are likely to be sold a passport form. Okay, you fill it in Muna's house in Accra. When you and me are witnesses, Bernard send you to passport office. Who will validate it? I want Mr. Atifa, do you have your birth certificate? If you have your own birth certificate, publish it, let's see. No, I have known of twins. When they were born, one was taken to Kibi to join his uncle. When he went, in a rush to take the boy to school, uncle gave him 17th May. The one in Takrady was also given 18th May. Do you say that because of this disparity, they are not twins? Twins, yeah. Mr. Kenatefa, you yourself, you are a lawyer. You know that this, if you compare this passport that you are using, there are almost half of holders of passport who are non-Ghanaians. And the proof is when America arrested some 70,000 Ghanaians. The ministry is not going forward to claim them and bring them back because he's saying that these are non-Ghanaians who are holding our passport. And let's go to the voter region. For a long time, historically, when the debate or the plebiscite came, the Martinihu group have always thought of a Ghana without the voter region and the northern region. They have always done that. They voted, encouraged people to vote against the plebiscite. They have always, and they have not stopped showing their disdain to the people of the voter region and the north. Apart from the names they give them, can you imagine if our party chairman Kofi Potofe has told, excuse me to say, Asante or Dochingini, that he's a palm one tapper, that he's talking like a palm one talk? If this has been told, and meanwhile, Toby Afedi is not an ordinary chief. He is the president of the National House of Chiefs. But because he's a Votarian, can be insulted and denigrated, nobody says anything. How can we tolerate this kind of thing? You are dividing the country into more districts. Ashanti region is the most populated, is the largest. You don't touch it. Regions, you don't touch it. Meanwhile, you want to divide the voter region. I'm saying that the MPP had always wished that Ghana was without the voter region. Otherwise, look, there's a secessionist movement in the voter region. In Spain and others, The government has taken strong stand against this because we want the unity of this country. Meanwhile, we are playing with those trying to secede the Volta region from from Ghana, only because what central Volta region is supposed to be the stronghold of NDC. Shameful pettiness. They have set up 60 years that they are going to rule this country. They can think so, and they think that by manipulating systems, change the electoral commission. You change your electoral commissioner. You change your electoral commissioner for procurement abuses. Not so. Not so.
Yeah.
Now when we tell you, publish all the procurement that you have made, and let's see the sole sourcing, you say you won't publish it. When we tell you, give us the records of a contract you have not signed, and you have signed not like 6 months, you say you can't find the records. This is the country we are having. You sack an electoral commissioner. In the words of the American ambassador, he's one of the most hardworking Ghanaians you have ever seen. You sack him for exigencies on a petition that was not even signed. Mr. Shen, you see, the problem we have in this country, I will continue to say, is the kind of journalists we have in this country. The kind of journalists we have in this country. See, Mona, stop blaming the clergy. Stop blaming the civil society, because the Nigerians have an adage that if you are eating, you don't talk. These are journalists who have been proved to be financiers of the MPP. These are journalists who have been proved to be members, die-hard members of the MPP. My friend Boku Bakun is not talking because he says he's a relative of Charlotte Osei. All the injustices that have been made against other persons, why didn't he talk?
Yes.
This is the kind of journalists we have. If it affects them, they will talk. If not, they will sit and plot against private innocent citizens. But society is like a snowball. You see, it gathers a lot of all these issues. The day it will explode, Abochi,
yes.
It exploded in South Africa. You understand? Look at all the civil explosions that have taken place in this world. There has been as a result of injustices, inequalities. Do they think that Ghana is different from Ivory Coast? Do they think that Ghana is different from Cote d'Ivoire, Mali and the rest? No. It's only that God gave us a certain sense of humor. We laugh and that is the end of it. But as long as we are thinking that some are more Ghanaian than the others, nobody can talk about Ochihine. Nobody can talk about Asantehine. You understand? Even if Ochihine talks about the vice president in a way that is not acceptable, somebody talks about it. Hey, but you can tell a whole Voltairean chief who is also the council of president of the House of Chiefs that he's talking like a Palm One tapper. Freddie Blair. Freddie Blair. When did you arrive? When Toby Afedi arrived, what did he do? He built Azogli to generate electricity for us. Not so. What did you do? When you arrived, you bought 275 buses only for your political party. Freddie Blair, you are supposed to be an Nzima, and the Nzimas they respect. Nobody will tell Awulai that he's talking like a Pamwan Tapa and be free in the Nzima land, or even be free in Ghana. Why should you, because of political parties, insult a whole parliament chief like Toby Afedi, a man who has made himself who he is, and not by a political party? You think Toby Afedi had to join MPP before he became a what? You. Anybody who had denounced Kwame Nkrumah will denounce him. Watch. Anybody who had denounced Kwame Nkrumah, anybody who flew on the wings of Kwame Nkrumah to become who he is. You were a CPP member of Parliament for Elemble. Because of that, you became what? Speaker of Parliament, not so. Now, because you want to be MPP chairman, you say what? You are MPP. You are only a fly on the back of that elephant. One day, you see where you fall. You see where you fall. But please, Toby Afedi is not your size. For nothing at all, he's a paramount chief. Like the Ashanti, he's like a paramount chief like Awolai. He's a paramount chief like Achini. So respect him, because all of us come from traditional areas where we are supposed to respect chiefs. Please withdraw that statement on Toby Afedi and apologize. And Toby, know where you come from. Toby Afedi, you also advise you know where you are coming from. Go back to your tradition and take what is your own. This is the only way to go. The impunity, the insult on the others and the Northerners should cease. We are all Ghanaians. And that's what Kwame Nkrumah intended us to be. And we shall be. We shall resist any attempt to divide the voter region. We shall resist any attempt to use tradition to govern this country. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your submission. That brings us to just about a few more minutes before we check out of here. But we still do have some small time to round up on the show this morning. I'll not take that time. I'll give it to Mr. Pat for his comments on this issue.
Well, look, I think we should approach this issue once again from a position of principle. The people of the Volta region are as Ghanaian as the people of the Ashanti region, as the people of the Western region, as the people of the Northern region. And that ought to be the principle. Yeah. Voltarians are no less Ghanaians than people from the Greater Accra region or people from the Eastern region and so on. And it's a matter of principle, you understand? I can't understand why the people of the Volta region are treated almost entirely on the basis of how they are perceived to vote in elections. Because if you take Ghana as a whole, the swing regions you have are about five. Which should mean that 5 regions out of 10 are not swing regions. And those 5 regions would include the Volta region, they would include Ashanti region, and they would include the Eastern region. You understand? So why would people in the Volta region be treated differently from people in Ashanti or in Eastern region or in the Central region? There can be no justification for that. And I said this because of certain actions which have been taken recently. 1, can somebody explain why out of 10 regions the decision was taken that the registration of birth should stop in the Volta region? There may be a very good reason for it, but I don't know it because I've not been told what the reason is. And it is strange that we have decided that it is only in the Volta region that the registration of birth should stop. And if this is not explained, then people can speculate. Then it would show clearly that there appears to be some discrimination against Voltarians. Because I don't understand. Now, I also don't understand why out of 10 regions, we have decided that the head and deputy of the birth and death registry should be removed or transferred to other regions. What has happened? If there are good reasons, please tell us what the good reasons are. Because in the absence of any reason, we will speculate. And the speculation may not be that healthy. Now, I insist that all of us from different regions of Ghana should be treated simply as Ghanaians. You understand? So, therefore, if we have decided that we are going to break up regions and so on for administrative convenience and to enable us to spread development, whatever that means and so on, then the same criteria must apply to all the regions. And I'm told that the criteria has to do with population density and land size. Now, I'm looking at the Volta region, and I'm looking very, very closely, and it does not seem to me that the Volta region is the most populated region in Ghana.
At all.
So why? Why the Volta region? Now, it does not also seem to me that the Volta region is the biggest land mass that we have in the country. and so on. So somebody must explain what is happening. You understand? There must be an explanation of what is happening, because if it's not explained, then it would appear, and I use my words advisedly, it would appear that we are engaged in discrimination. You understand? Because if the same principle is being applied across board and so on, then I cannot see why, for example, the Ashanti region will continue to remain one region when the Volta region will be divided into two. There must be some interesting explanation, and I'm waiting for that interesting explanation. It may be some explanation which may be reasonable, but I don't have that explanation yet.
It's not there.
And I'm waiting to see what kinds of explanation will be provided for what is happening. We should be very careful, very, very careful. As a young boy, I can remember the fallout from the plebiscite on the Volta region, certain parts of the Volta region. Everybody thinks that is the whole of the Volta region. It is not. Qatar and other places were already part of Ghana.
Yes.
You understand? So when you talk about the plebiscite, it doesn't include the coastal towns, the southern part, some southern parts of the Volta region. But I recall very clearly that after the plebiscite, some people armed themselves to wage war on Ghana. I don't know if you remember, around Alhaji. And the Ghana Armed Forces had to be mobilized to crush them, and so on. I've seen footage of a demonstration in the Volta region recently. And I am not happy about the things that I'm seeing. I'm not happy about the sentiments that are flaring up in the region. And I would urge all of our national leaders to make a very special effort to seal, to consolidate the relationship that exists between the rest of Ghana and the Volta region. And the only way to do that is to approach the Volta region from a principled standpoint. Principled. If we have to divide up regions, the reasons for dividing up the Volta region must apply to Greater Accra, it must apply to Central, it must apply to Northern, it must apply to Ashanti, it must apply to every other region. If we have to suspend the registration of birth in the Volta region, and if we have good reason, that reason must apply to all other regions. If we have to remove the leadership of the birth and death registry in the Volta region, the principle which goes into doing that must apply to all other regions, and so on. Finish. We have to be fair to Voltarians, and we have to be fair to all other Ghanaians. Finish.
Thank you, Mr. Pratt, for the submissions this morning. If you check the time, it's 5 minutes after 12. And this is where we come to the end of today's edition of Alhaji and Alhaji. My guests this morning have been Mr. Kwesipa Jr., the managing editor of the Insight newspaper, Ambassador Sampiale, former High Commissioner to India, Comrade Mutala Ibrahim Mohammed, he is a former Member of Parliament for Nantom, and Mr. Benan Mona, the party chair for the PNC. They helped me discuss